They're taking our bloody jobs. They're taking our bloody jobs. They're taking our bloody jobs.
I'm sure you've heard many people say that. I'm sure you've heard many people who look like that say that online. I'm sure you've seen a lot of satire making fun of that genre of person saying that genre of statement. But they are right to a degree. And it leads to one of the strongest economic arguments for remigration that there is. To start off with, it doesn't seem the case that third world immigrants are coming into this country and literally kicking people out of their jobs. They're not walking into a shop applying and then some native Briton is fired for this, for Abdul to get his shopkeeper job. That isn't what's happening. But what is happening is the over-saturisation of the labour market, which is leading to some drastic economic consequences in this country. As the amount of low-skilled labour massively increases in this country via mass immigration, then the value of said low-skilled labour is going to massively decrease, leading to wage stagnation, which we've seen with the very, very slow rise of minimum wage over the past 20 years compared to inflation. And it's not just the oversupply of low-skilled labour, which would be bad enough. It's the fact that the people from these countries that are coming in are simply willing to work in much worse conditions for much longer hours for much less pay. And this has led to third world migrants simply out-competing native Britons for jobs, or for native Britons being forced to compromise on what they would expect from an employer when it comes to conditions or pay, down to what someone coming from a literal slum would expect from an employee, which is simply unfair for British people. We hear all the time that immigration is good for the economy, and that is true to an extent. It does increase the workforce, it does increase net GDP, but it only really serves the elites and the business owners of society who are relying now on mass migration for cheap labour. It simply doesn't serve the regular working person of this country. And the neolibertarian ideal that we should just prioritise big GDP number above anything else, above living standards, above the spiritual richness of a country, the cultural richness of a country, is complete and utter bullshit that is, again, only designed to serve the elites of society. The only way to fix this issue, therefore, is to reduce the amount of people available in the low-skilled labour market and to increase the standards that are expected by the everyday working class person. And it seems the only way to do this, or at least step one of how to do this, is mass remigration. And there's actually a brilliant case study from our own country to show that this is very, very likely to have a profoundly positive effect on the current job market. In the early 14th century, worker rights in this country were non-existent. Workers of the land were bound to the lordship that they served under. They could not leave legally. Wages, hours, conditions, they were all absolutely abysmal. However, then the Black Death happens, and afterwards there is still an incredible amount of labour to be done, but far, far fewer people to do said labour. And within a matter of years, average workers' wages almost tripled. Workers' rights were implemented as a concept for the first time. For example, labourers were actually allowed freedom of movement, and it was so good that workers of the land got almost half the year off every single year. And that's why from when did it happen? From 1353, which was the end of the Black Death, all the way through to about the late 1500s, was when such an incredible amount and incredible quality of churches and cathedrals were built in this country, because it was a very religious country back then, and people in their spare time just went and built churches of their own accord. We simply need a reduction in the labour market, and then suddenly these incredible benefits will start coming back, because once employers implement them, it's very difficult to then take them away with any swiftness, because people will just refuse to work at your place. And in the modern era, mass migration is how we create this catalyst event. Now, this entire argument completely falls apart if you don't believe that the native people of Britain, the Anglo-Saxons and the Celts, have more of a right to the land and society that we have built, that our ancestors have built, than foreign nationals or people of other descents. And if you don't agree with that, then I might talk about that in another video and lay out my arguments